Yes, today's the day. Today's the day. Retired expat birthday in Korea. It's quiet, no bells or whistles, no birthday cake. It's just me and my latte, and I got a birthday donut. So, yeah, that's what we got going on today. Anyway, everybody, thanks for checking in. Today is my B day. I am officially 58 years old, which is pretty good. I'm in better shape than most of my life. Well, I take that back. When I was in the military, I was in really good shape, but I wasn't as muscular as I am now. I was more in good performance shape back then, but now I'm in better overall shape and health than when I was in the military. Because in the military, even though I was in good shape, it ends up that, you know, drinking a pot or two of coffee a day, smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, sometimes three, it depends on what was going on. But, in the younger days when I was partying and all that stuff, it was just like, yeah, I was in shape, but I wasn't healthy. So, as I'm eating a donut. So, anyway, not that donuts are not healthy. It's funny. That's something that's I've learned over the years is that foods in and of themselves are generally okay. It just depends on the extent of the foods that you eat. So if I shove, 2 dozen donuts down my pie hole and I do that for 3, 4 days out of the week, it's probably not going to be healthy for me. But if I have a couple donuts every now and then, it's not bad. So yeah, it's all about uh, balance is what it's come out to. And people are like, "Oh, processed foods are evil," and blah blah blah. And it's like, you know what? Everything in moderation, and that includes exercise. That includes sleep. Taking care of yourself, being emotionally fit and physically fit, all of that, mentally fit, all that comes into play. Because you can be physically fit as a fiddle, but your mental health can be in the crapper, and it doesn't matter how physically fit you are. You're miserable. Some people have already. As I woke up early this morning, it's kind of late. It is 6:35 right now, and some people have already sent me messages saying happy birthday. What are your big plans for the day? And it's like, oh, there's going to be a parade, and no, it's birthday cake. No, it's the big thing that I have planned for today is a doctor's appointment and to refill medications at the Korean hospital. So yeah, that's what we got going on. That's and aside from that, I think we're going to go out and we'll go to a restaurant. And we'll get a late lunch or an early dinner or something like that. But other than that, it's nothing out of the ordinary. And I know some people do big, extravagant things for their birthdays, and growing up in a dysfunctional home, that just really wasn't a thing for me. Um, it was, and I've talked about my family and its dysfunctional. Um, it ranks right up there with Christopher Titus. It's pretty bad. I mean, his mom killed a guy, murdered a guy. My dad murdered his wife. So we're kind of even keel on there, and so it's as far as dysfunction goes. Yeah, I rank up there pretty well. But with that, grown up, birthdays weren't really a thing. Had a lot of bad experiences on birthdays. growing up with my family and stepdad, drunken stepdads and drunken boyfriends and stuff like that, and just wasn't a good thing. Now, when I was with my grandparents, that was another thing. My grandparents are awesome, and so some of the best birthdays I had were with them, but that wasn't too often. It was rough. But joined the military at 17, actually 16 under the delayed entry program. And then after that, I started adulting, and I adulted all the way until I was 38, and I retired from the military. And again, being in the military, being that my birthday was October, a lot of deployments, wasn't home for birthdays. And even when I was, with a new family, baby, not getting paid a lot of money, not, compared to what soldiers get today, I'm not whining. But I will say my pay was pretty low on the scale. Matter of fact, as a specialist, I qualified for WIC. So that'll tell you how low the pay was back then. But that didn't bother me, and so there wasn't a lot of spending and things like that. But later on in the years, just enjoy being with family. Just enjoy being alive. That's kind of a thing. So as I look back now, I'm getting to the age where I think officially I'm old, because people don't know what to buy me, and I buy what I want when I want, and I think that's the definition of old. That's the first part of it. The second definition of being an old is that you're thinking about stuff and you're like, okay, well, what could somebody buy me? Because people ask me, well, what can we get you for a present? And, wife, daughter, family, whatever. And it's like, well, I didn't really know, because really, if there's something that I really, really want, I will go out and buy it. It's not like I hold stuff in reserve and say, well, I really, really want this, but I got to wait until my birthday. I'm just not that type of guy. And so I've officially, as I was thinking back a few weeks ago, I've come to a place of, as I was putting on my socks, and I noticed a hole in my socks, I'm like, man, it's another hole in my socks, because my toenails grow like claws, like, what was it, Wolverine's brother, whatever his name is. I forget Wolverine's brother. What was his name, the character? But anyway, I got claws on my feet, and I constantly have to trim my toenails, and so they will get long. And as I run or as I work out and stuff like that, sometimes it'll rub bare spots on my socks, and so I get a hole in my sock. I'm looking down, and I'm like, man, you know what I would really like? I would really like a good pair of socks. And then I was like, holy crap, I'm old, because I flash back to the time of when I was with my grandparents. We're in Colorado, we're at the farm, and the farm it was like 5 or 10 acres, something like that. Grandfather built the house by himself. It had a basement, a main floor, another floor, massive garden. It was incredible. I love that place. And I remember my grandfather saying that he wanted a good pair of socks, and he wanted some underwear, a good pair of socks. And I'm just like, I guess I am now officially old, because if somebody was to buy me something, it would be a good pair, a good package of socks, And I was just like, yeah, I'm old. So it is what it is. You do the thing, and you think you're going to live forever, and then one day you hit these epiphanies of, oh my gosh, I'm saying things that old people say. My grandfather, rest his soul, was an incredible man. He joined the Army Air Corps, and then it became the Air Force, and so then he was in the Air Force, and then he did 30 years of that, and he retired, and then he did like 4 to 6 months in couldn't handle it. And then the government came back and said, hey, Vinny, wouldn't you like to do the exact same job as a GS 13, 14 or whatever it was, and just come in civilian clothes? And so he jumped on that and did another 10 years of that. So he did 40 years of service. And I remember him later in life, he would eat his lunch, he would read the paper, he'd go on his walks, and he'd listen to talk radio, and he'd get mad at all the stupid stuff that's going on, and just, And lo and behold, I realized over these last few weeks of this pending birthday that I'm turning into a little bit like my grandfather, who's pretty much the only positive male role model I had in my life. And that I get up, I'll exercise, I'll do the same thing. I won't read newspapers, but I'll read the social media, see the news online on my phone, and the crazy, stupid stuff that's going around. And what do I find myself doing? Same stuff that my grandfather did. And it's like, hey, crazy people, the similarities are amazing. So, yeah. And I see his life and what he did in the military, and military service is government service, and how there was a lot of people, and then his circle of friends kind of died down, and then it was kind of just him and the wife, my grandma. And I've noticed that's kind of the same pattern that I'm seeing in my life, Military, law enforcement, firearms, self-defense instructor, and so on and so forth. Was a contractor for a little while. Worked for the Department of Corrections as a guard, promoted, electronics technician, doing all that kind of stuff. And I realized that my circle of friends has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And kind of like my grandfather. And maybe that's just because I don't know. Maybe people die off, or people move away, and so you don't make new friends, and so through attrition, your circle gets smaller and smaller, and or maybe I think you just realize that a lot of people are just stupid, and so you don't make new friends. I've run across some people that are like, they seem like they're good guys, good Joes and everything. And then they'll bring something up and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm never going to talk to that person again. I've run into some doozies. It's just kind of amazing on some of the experiences that I've been through in life and thinking about what's going to happen next. It's harder and harder for me to stay in shape. It's not as hard as other people, because once you get in shape, you can maintain that shape, and it's a lot easier than constantly trying to build muscle all the time. But I think I'm getting to a place of where I'm at the peak, and I'm pretty much going to have to maintain. I might do one or two more bulks, I don't know. But it's a lot of work to try to gain muscle. And that was kind of my thing, doing that. Like I said, I might do a couple more rounds of bulking and things like that. I'll still go to the gym. Yeah, I go to the gym 3 days a week. I'll do 2.5, 3 hours in the gym, including cardio. And, I put on some size. I'm about 255, 257 at 6'2", so that works. But it takes a lot to maintain that size. And as I get older, I notice I don't want to eat as much anymore. I want to eat some donuts, but the quantity of food and protein that you have to eat to maintain the size, that's a job in itself. That was so good. But some of the things that I've learned since I've been around 58 years and through some very frustrating times in life, some neat little sayings: trust but verify. If I could go back to my younger self, I would learn to set boundaries. I would tell myself, learn to set healthy boundaries, even at the expense of cutting out family members, because toxic people can ruin you and they can take such a toll on your psyche that it just it takes all the wind out of your sails. And so I think if I could go back in time, I would tell myself, learn how to set healthy boundaries with family. Because if you can set boundaries with family, especially toxic family members, then you will be able to set boundaries with anybody else. Second thing I would end up saying is have high standards and don't waver on those standards. And if you don't know what your standards are, then take the time to think about it. You know, what are your standards? So many people go through life just wandering aimlessly and they don't know what they want. And so the course of their life is meandering around. And then later on in life, as they get older, they find out, I'm not where I wanted to be. Well, you're not where you wanted to be because you just realized where you wanted to be and you had no goals or standards early on. And now there's this disconnect. Now you're frustrated, you're angry, you're mad. And yeah, I would go back and tell myself, you know, have some standards, set higher standards, have a plan, you know, set a plan on what you want to do specifically. And I think that's really important, especially for younger people today. You know, people say, "Oh, you boomers." I get called boomer a lot. I'm only 58. Boomers are like what, 70s now? Boomers are 70-ish, and I'm only 58. But a lot of the younger generation are just like, "Oh, well, you had it so easy," and it's like, no, we didn't. You know, you just have to adapt and overcome and face what you have to face. Some people talk about it's impossible to get housing. Young people can't buy a house, they can't buy a home, they can't rent, and it's like, I beg to differ. When there's a will, there's a way. If you look at the immigrants that come to the United States, and a lot of people who come to the United States legally they're poor, they don't have a lot of money, but they'll pool their resources together and then they'll work towards a common good and then they'll expand from there. And I think we've lost that as a nation, especially as a younger generation. So, you know, I complain about rent being high, get a place, sublet it out. You know, that's something immigrants and poor people have been doing for a long, long time and continue to do that. One great example of this is we got to live on Hawaii, on Oahu for a year. After I retired from the United States, my daughter invited us to come to Oahu. She was going through residency, and it was like she would get home-cooked meals, and we would do her laundry, and then we get to stay in Hawaii for free. So that was a great deal. Didn't have to pay rent. You know, we flipped the bill for groceries and stuff like that. But with that, I mean, there's generations of people on Oahu and in Hawaii in similar circumstances where housing is so out of control expensive that you'll have grandfathers, you'll have parents, kids, grandkids living all in one house, and they all work, they all contribute to the common cause of let's pay off the house, let's invest, let's start a business or whatever it is. And I think the United States needs to come around that part of the circle again. You know, we're at the top where everybody has been blessed with so much, and now we take it for granted, and now we have high housing prices, and people are freaking out. And it's, oh, I can't get a place to live, and houses are too expensive. And these are the people, I've actually talked to people, younger people, obviously. They're saying, we can't afford a house. Well, what type of house do you want to, can you afford? Are you looking to get? Those are two different things. What you can afford and what you want. And it's interesting. It's like, well, we want this. I want a 5 bedroom. I want an oversized garage. I want a shop. I want it in a nice, super nice neighborhood, and blah blah blah. And you're looking, okay, the dollar signs just keep clicking higher and higher and higher. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And it's like, well, how much do you make? Well, I don't make enough. And it's like, so housing is terrible. The United States is bad. And it's like, you know what? It'd be nice if everybody could afford a gated community, a huge house with, home theater and oversized garage and shop in the back, the whole 9 yards, in a low crime area. But I didn't get to do that either. And a lot of us, my age and older, didn't get to do that. And we ended up renting in bad areas. We saved, we skimped, we cut coupons, we were on WIC, we had side jobs on top of the main jobs that we had, and then some side gigs after that. So, you can't say that we had it better. The places that we bought were bank-owned properties. They were repossessed homes that were trashed. I have never bought a brand new house in my life. And people are complaining, I can't buy a new house. And it's like, I don't know anybody personally that has bought a brand new house. Well, one guy. I know one guy who bought a brand new house. It was built to spec in the whole 9 yards. But, the normal people that I know, nobody's ever bought a brand new house. It's always been used. And we were kind of on the lower end of the scale. And it's like, I don't want to rent in a crappy part of town, and I want a house. And it's like, but my expenses only allow me, my budget only allows me this much here, and I can't afford what I want, but what I need, I can afford by buying a bank-owned property and fixing it up and rehabbing it as we live in it, which can be a pain in the ass, and it's hard work. When you're living in a house that doesn't have a kitchen, or you had to tear out the floor, so all you have is that plywood subflooring stuff, and it's not nice, it's not pretty, and you're stuck living on that until you get some money to buy tile. And it's you do it in stages and little bit by little bit. It's not like this house hunters thing, oh, I want this, I want that. But I think that's what we've trained the younger generations to do, is that we want this immediate gratification. We don't want to work for anything. And now the children that are coming around now are expecting this to be handed to them, because that's what they see in media, that's what they see in TV and Instagram and all this stuff. Little do they realize that the majority of people have to work their ass off to get to a place of where they're comfortable. The number of houses that we bought and lived in and fixed up and sold was a lot. And it was a pain in the butt, because you work a full-time job, then you come home, and weekends you're working on the house, which is another full-time job. Throw a kid on top of that. Wife works, if you do that. Personally, I didn't want my kid being raised in a daycare. So I worked and did stuff so that my wife could stay home and raise our child. And then later on, after the kid got bigger, and we established good morals in her and work ethic and all that, that later, the wife started working. And again, we repeated that process. This is so good. It was great with the new coffee we got. But nothing, for the majority of people in my tax bracket early on, nothing was given to us. We didn't have inheritance. Our parents didn't pay our rent. They didn't pay for our cell phones. They didn't pay for any of our expenses. It was all up to us. And, I remember even before I got married that living off post, a guy rented a place and he was barely able to afford it. And then it's like, hey, do you want to, we'll be roommates and we can split the expenses. I get to live off post. He gets to minimize his expenses. We both get to save a little bit of money if we were smart enough to save money. That would be the other thing. Start saving money. Do it early. Have an automatic deduction to go into a Roth IRA and then learn how to invest money. Do all that stuff. Set it and forget it, because there will be a time of where, like that, you're going to be in your 40s and you're going to be like, crap. And then you're going to realize you're going to hit mid 40s, and then you're like, you know what? Retirement is just around the corner, and this last 30, 40 years, 50 years just went by so quick. And time goes by even faster the older you get. Seriously, it does. High school took forever. But now, we've been retired here in Korea for 2 years, and it has just flown by like that. Next thing you know, it's like, okay, well, and we retired early. It was like, what, I was 54, I think it was. So, yeah, it's already been 4 years of that. So 2 years here, 1 year Hawaii, then a year before that. So, yeah, it's crazy stuff. And time goes by so fast. So, yeah, I would recommend saving early and minimize expenses. And then you make these you make these things and you do these things, so you might not have the newest phone every year. I remember the first time we got an Apple iPhone, and it was like the Apple 6S or something like that. It was the first Apple iPhone we had, and before that we had the little flip track phones or whatever. Yeah, that's how cheap we were. And everybody else was like on iPhone 9 or whatever. Yeah, we were really cheap. So, and that was a huge expense for us. That was a huge thing. It's like, oh, that was a lot of money. Now, my wife is the saver, I'm the spender, and she's kind of tamed me in that aspect. But, do the hard stuff first, and then later on in your retirement years, then you can enjoy the fruits of that frustration that you did by working your ass off and saving nickels and looking down at the ground and picking up dimes and quarters in parking lots and whatever, trying to do side gigs and stuff like that. So later on in life, you can be retired and actually enjoy and buy the things that you want. But if you buy the things that you want during your entire life and you don't have the money and you go into debt, yeah, retirement's going to suck for you, because I doubt you'll make it. Thank God for the military and the pension and the medical benefits that I get and so on and so forth. Working for the state, which is, so many kids today, they want the money and they scream, oh, housing's too expensive and this and that. But they also want the job that requires very little work, if any, with a massive paycheck. And it's like they don't understand that you have to start at the bottom of the rung. It's just like the military. You go in the military and you start off as the lowest rank person there, and then through hard work and dedication and learning and being and knowing and doing, that whole Army be no do thing, you get promoted, and that's how life works. And yesterday, actually last night, I was watching some reels and saw some rehashed old posts of millennials and younger generation, where the kid who worked at Starbucks is like curled up in a fetal position in a ball, and he's like crying because he had to work an 8-hour shift. And then there was the other video about the lady, how she, young lady, how she had to work like 9 to 5 job, and it ends up that, basically when you work a full-time job, it's 12 hours. Throw in some travel time, throw in some lunch, throw in work and more travel time back home, and you get home and it's night. Imagine that. That's reality. And then you don't have time for partying. You don't have time for a lot of different things. And there needs to be some juggling so that you can maintain your sanity. But, she was whining and she says, oh, I can't do this and blah, blah, blah. I don't understand. And it's like, well, you gotta pay. And you're either gonna pay now or you're gonna pay later. The thing is, if you pay when you're younger and go through all that shit when you're younger, you rise through the ranks, you save money, you do all this stuff, and you have a plan towards retirement. You have a plan on, hey, I'm not always going to be in this place here. This is just temporary. And then you can enjoy your retired life. There's no guarantee. But we have people today, and even people that are my age and older, who just spend everything and expect that, and then they expect much more, and they're frustrated in the fact that they don't have a lot when they retire, if they can even retire at all. And it's like, well, you got to pay. And it's either now or later. You can have your best life now when you're young, but later on in life, the majority of people, what is it? There's a few surveys and articles I read that 3/4 of seniors are not going to be able to retire. So you're going to pay and work the rest of your life until you're dead. And I've seen people like that. When I worked for the state of Colorado, great pension system and all that stuff. And it ended up, boy, that's really, let me get some light on the subject. It ends up that people are just trying to, does that look a little better? That looks a little better. There's people that were working and at a job that sucks immensely. I thought the military sucked. No, the military doesn't suck. Working in prison, that sucks. That far exceeds the suck factor of anything I've done in the military. So, and these people are pushing. And the state organizes its pension so that, at least in Colorado, that the number of years worked plus your age, you have to hit a certain number, and then you'll be able to retire. So, with that, I remember people would work. And guys are like, yeah, I'm almost up to retirement age, and they're in their mid 60s. They're getting higher up in age. And there was a couple of people that I knew died at work. People just a couple years away from retiring, and they died eating lunch in a prison dining facility. They didn't take care of themselves mentally, emotionally, or physically. The few people that I know that did die at work were overweight, they smoked, they drank, and you can't buck the system. The whole thing of saying, well, my grandma or my great grandma smoked and drank until she was 100 years old. That's an exception to the rule. That's not what the majority are going to enjoy. The majority of people are going to be faced with lung cancer. They're going to be faced with cirrhosis of alcoholism and so on and so forth. So you need to take care of your body. But, especially these days, I will say it was easier for people like me and prior to that to be able to work and get pensions and retire compared to this generation that's coming in, because so many companies and everybody is getting away from offering pensions because it's too much of an expense. I will, cede that point. But that just means that you need to, again, work hard while you're young, and you can put up with the BS so that you can get to a place where you can retire. And, it's another reason why I retired overseas, is because of that, because I saw that staying in the United States, I wouldn't be able to retire until I'm late in life. And seeing people keel over at the workplace before they could even draw their first pension check and even be retired, that just wasn't appealing to me. So that, I think we're getting more into a global mentality, not in a bad way, but I think it just opens up that there's more possibilities out there. than there was when I was growing up. You know, now you have remote work. Now you have digital nomads, which were not a thing at all, you know. So you have people that do that. You have people that are, you know, doing trade skills, you know, electricians and plumbers and construction trades and stuff like that. There's a guy that at the prison I worked at, there was a guy who was doing heavy equipment operation as an inmate, learning that, getting his license. And then when he got out, he was making $30, $40 an hour. And it's like, yeah, he said prison was the best thing for me because it taught me a good work ethic instead of being stupid. And he has a trade, he's doing good, you know, he's not doing knucklehead stuff anymore. And you know, there's people like that that understand that they did stupid and they're willing to fix that. But the problem today is, I think from my perspective and what I see, I don't think a lot of things, we're not seeing those options for our kids in schools. And schools are not presenting these options of saying, hey, you can go to school, you could be a doctor, a lawyer, blah blah blah, all that high collar stuff, white collar stuff with the high pay. They're not really pushing that like they used to. And they're definitely not pushing trade schools and electronics, mechanics, construction, plumbers, electricians, any of that stuff, to where you can get paid to be trained to be an electrician, and you could end up. There was a guy I knew who's working in Denver who's making like $60 an hour as an electrician, and he got paid to go through all the training, and you know, now he's doing really well. So, I schools now are more concerned about, you know, gender and expressing your sexuality and the pronouns and playing with dildos and all that stuff. And it's like, you know, as I look back at being 58, I'm just like, it's no wonder our generation is losing their way because we're not even pointing them in any direction whatsoever that will help them be a good citizen, to help them start a business, to help them get a job that will sustain them and their families to where they can actually succeed in life. We're just not doing that as much as we used to. So yeah, it's very very interesting on what's going on. The other thing I would suggest is, and I kind of knew this a while back, but generational wealth. If you raise your kids right, there's a better chance that they will be good adults. You know, there's still the knuckleheads out there. It doesn't matter how right you raise them, their kid's going to do crack and meth and, you know, turn into a trans hooker or whatever. You know, go down the wrong road, go to prison. There you will always have people like that. But if you raise your kid right, and if they do right, um, pass on some generational wealth, you know, and make that a thing. Kind of like life insurance. That's a thing. That's a viable thing that can change the destiny of your family line forever. But they have to deserve it. But the problem is, a lot of the kids today, even though they got these gender affirming studies and this and that and social justice whatever, and women feminist basket weaving 102, you know, degree in counseling of queer, you know, you can be whatever you want. I don't really care. But college used to be to prepare you for a place where you could get a job and get a good paycheck. Now we have college that is offering degrees in things where you can be a barista and you're, you know, 80, 100, $200,000 in debt. Yeah. Um, I think that's something that needs to change in the United States and as a whole, you know. But then there's the other extreme as well. Being retired here in Korea, Korea in Japan and other Asian countries, they are super hot on education. And sometimes it's to the detriment of the mental health of the students themselves. And they get burnt out. And so I think there needs to be that happy medium. You can't go from one extreme to the other. There needs to be balance. And I think if you understand that, you have boundaries, you have goals, and you work within those things, and you strive to achieve goals, you'll be able to do it. Um, you know, if people from other countries that are poor as dirt and don't even have dirt can come to the United States and become successful, start a business, and have a place for them and their family, and have some generational wealth and inheritance to pass down to their family members. Why can't people in the United States do that? And I think it's because we've raised our children, and our society has raised children, our government has raised children, and people to think that they deserve that regardless. That you don't have to put in the work to get those things. They have this entitlement, and where it's like, I don't need to work, I don't need to do this. Yeah, you do need to work, because eventually your parents are going to die and they don't have a lot of money, and then now who's going to pay your bills? There's going to be a rude awakening for a lot of people. So, do I sound like an angry, grumpy old man yet? I kind of see flashes of my grandfather as I'm speaking. So, he said kind of the same things. So I got to hand it to him. But yeah, 58 years. 58 years. 1966. So it's been a minute. And I realize that time is going faster. I realize that the average age of men and all of that, I'm on the downside of that, but I'm making a plan that I'm going to die in my sleep at 85. So that's the goal that I'm shooting for, Going to stay in shape as long as I can and just go to bed and not wake up, and I'll be done. That's the plan. Now, whether that works out or not, we'll see. We'll see how that happens. Any number of things can happen, but make decisions. I think another thing I would say that I've learned in 58 years is make decisions and take action. And even if those actions turn out to be wrong, at least you took action. At least you tried something, And then if you failed, look at why you failed, and then take those lessons learned and don't fail again in that area. That's another important thing. I don't think we teach our kids critical thinking anymore either. And that's a shame. We don't teach them logic. We don't teach them history anymore. We don't teach as much hard sciences. There was a TV show that I saw here in Korea where it had a bunch of Korean high school students, and it was either middle or high school students, or junior high or high school students, and then they had some UK kids that were high school, and they took like an exam, a college entrance exam, whatever. And the Korean kids all did it, boom, knocked it out. And the kids in the UK were like, oh, that was the hardest thing ever. I didn't finish, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, the Korean kids are like, oh yeah, we learned that in middle school. We learned that in, junior high. And yeah, that's elementary stuff. I think we've lowered our standards so much in the United States and other industrialized countries in the world. And we took it for granted that we don't need to study as hard, and now we're producing less productive citizens, and we don't know why. I'm not saying that I'm a scholar. I'm definitely not. I barely graduated high school, even though I graduated high school early, which is kind of interesting. My thing was, if you could tell me why I needed to study something and how it would benefit me, then I would study it and I would do well. But if you couldn't, kind of like calculus and math and all that stuff, if you couldn't tell me why I needed to learn and how to find X, it just didn't really make sense to me. And so I didn't want to put time and effort into it. And that was me personally. But then I got to a place of where, even though I hated math, I ended up going to a private school because I was a problem child, whoop-de-doo. And during that time, it ends up that it was a self-paced curriculum. And so it was the carrot stick type of thing. So if you did the allocated amount of work that you were supposed to do, then you got X amount of privileges. If you did a little bit more, then you get more privileges, and so on until, if you did everything that you needed to do and then some more on top of that, then you had free reign to do whatever you want. And this was a pretty strict school. It was, slack, shirt, tie, gangly little kid with red hair and braces, and I looked ugly, blazing red hair. But once I got to that and I understood there was things that I wanted, and if I wanted to get those things, they said, well, if you do these things here, you can get these things here. And so I ended up doing 2 years of high school in 1 year. And so that's how I was able to graduate early. That was a private school. But then I went back to public school, and then I did all. It was amazing. There were more problems in the private school than there were in public school. There was more drug problems. There was more promiscuity in this religious private school that I went to than there was in public schools. Nowadays, good Lord, I would not want to have a kid going to public school today. I would definitely do the homeschooling if that was the case, and prepare my kids to rise above the mediocrity that our society is creating. Oh man. So, yeah. Other than that, I'm not big on birthdays. I'm definitely not big on birthdays anymore. Haven't been for a while because of family upbringing. It's just a lot of pain, and so it's like, to get away from that pain, let's just not do birthdays. I don't really care. Um, but I think as I get older, uh, you need to assess and reassess and look back and kind of summarize the last year that you have and what went right, what went wrong. Kind of dust off your plan, because even though I'm retired, I still have goals that I want to reach. There's still things that I need to do before I shed this mortal coil, hopefully at 85, when I pass away in my sleep. Uh, but, if you stop, if you don't have any goals and dreams, or just goals, period, your life will get pretty miserable. And that's why I do the hobby stuff. That's why I do the videos. That's why I do, the working out in the gym. I have these goals and activities to keep my mind sharp, to keep my body in shape. And, those are failing. They will for everybody. But I'm trying to stave that off as much as I can. But if you think retirement is just going to be sitting at a beach and drinking Mai Tais, or in my case, soju, here in Korea, and that's all you're going to end up doing is just drinking and going to karaoke and all that, and watching K-pop dramas and whoop de doo, eating ramen all day long. If that's that's not retirement. You're going to get bored pretty quick, and no matter where you're retired in the United States. The thing in the United States is that people our age and older who have retired, usually we have a ton of stuff. And we have activities, we have a workshop, we rebuild cars, we do this or that, woodworking or whatever it is. We have some activities to keep us busy. But there's a lot of people that are older that just want to sit and drink. They, when I quit work and I retire, I don't want to do anything. I just want to sit and drink, and I just don't want to put up with any bullshit whatsoever. And it's like, those are the people that usually pass away early, because they have no goals, they have no stress, they have no desire. And so your body's going to, if you have no desire in your mind, your body's just going to basically have no desire, and it's going to react accordingly. So, yeah, you need to have some activities. And I was on some other expat pages, and a number of people that are my age and older, especially the older ones. I'm young compared to these other expats, but they're saying, yeah, you can only have so many Mai Tais. You get tired of the beach. You can only eat so much Thai food. You can only, sit on your veranda for so long, and you'll get bored. And some of them even said, you'll go to the clubs and you'll date all these girls, pay for girlfriends, and eventually you're going to get bored with that stuff. So you need to have a plan. So just like you had to have a plan early on in life, you need to have a plan for your retired life. And that was really important. I learned that early on in the military. When I was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, I was in the infantry, and we had the sergeant major who was a world class dick. And he was one of those guys that was like divorced twice. He was going to stay in forever, and he didn't have a life. He was an alcoholic, and the weekends he would come into the barracks and just fuck with Joes and the soldiers and made their lives miserable. Have them do police calls Sunday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. you know, how would you like if somebody just rousted you up at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning? And said, hey, we need to do a police call and pick up trash around. Dude, I'm off. But that's the military. So anyway, I learned early on that, yeah, you need to take care of yourself. You need to manage your stress, because what happened with this guy is he actually got to a place of where there were some problems, and he was suggested to retire, and he did, and 6 months later he died. And the reason is because he had too much stress. And so the stress of being in the military and constantly amped up and doing stuff, not only just military stuff and deployments and all that, but just being the massive dick that he was, and just doing something all the time and ordering people to do this and that and being the big head honcho. And he went from that to nothing. Yeah, in 6 months he died. And boom, he was worthless. Kind of worthless before, but he was definitely worthless after he passed. So you need to learn how to manage your stress. And that would be another thing. If I could go back in time to my younger self, I would learn how to manage stress. And that doesn't mean get rid of all stress. That just means you need to manage it. And there's mental stress, emotional stress, physical stress, but all of those stresses have an effect on your body, mentally and physically, and all of that. And that if you don't learn how to deal with that and manage it, it will manage you. So, yeah, that's something I would go back and tell my younger self as well. Save money, work hard, set goals, have high standards, learn to manage stress. What else? What else would I tell my younger self with what I know now at being 58? Relationships. That's a good one. It kind of goes along with setting goals and boundaries and all that stuff. But since my family was severely dysfunctional, uh, and dating was rough, didn't really, that was rough. But I saw what was going on in the dating world at that time, and I didn't like it, because I would see people that had similar dysfunctions to what I experienced in my family, and these people are getting married, and then they're reproducing the same dysfunctions and crappy family life and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I need to learn how to not do that. So I need to learn about relationships. And what I ended up doing is I got to a place where I said, I don't want to date anymore. I don't want to get married. Excuse me. And what I ended up doing so I took a hiatus from dating, and I read like 29 different relationship books on healthy relationships, how to set boundaries, and so on and so forth. And this is when I was in my early 20s, and I got married at like 26, 27, or whatever it was. But I read about 30, 29, it was actually 29 relationship and marriage books and stuff like that on how to have healthy relationships. And so basically I took a hiatus to improve myself and read those books and took it to heart and all those things. And yeah, that was worth its weight in gold. I will tell you that. And don't do this new age relationship BS stuff and the stuff that they got coming out now. Go back to the old school stuff. The old relationship advice and really what happens is you need to start working on yourself. And that's a lot of people don't want to do that. So learn how to work on yourself, learn to identify healthy relationships versus toxic relationships. And then that way, if you know and have high standards for healthy relationships and you know what to look for, then you will get better because you're working on yourself, and then you will gravitate more towards other healthy people. And two healthy relationships are a lot better than two toxic relationships, or a toxic relationship and a healthy relationship. It will make that healthy relationship toxic. Rarely does the other change. So yeah, learn how relationship works. That would be the other thing I would go back and tell my younger self. And yeah, save money, do all that good stuff, enjoy life. Take the time to enjoy life, because you're going to get to a place of where, excuse me, my wife worked hospice and with seniors and stuff like that. And she kept telling me that these seniors wish they had always done more, you know, and, wish they had traveled more, unfulfilled dreams, all of that. But then there's a lot that where it ends up that these seniors had fulfilled their dreams. They had done a ton of traveling and this and that and the whole 9 yards. And so, but they're alone, and the only thing they have left are their memories. So, looking at that perspective and thinking, putting myself into that type of situation, if I'm the only one left and I'm in a diminished capacity, the only thing I'm going to have are my memories and photos and so on and so forth. And do you have good memories? Do you have photos that bring about joy and peace and all those things? Or do you not have those things? So, and it doesn't mean that the memories that you make have to cost a lot of money. It's not trips to Disneyland or Hawaii or things like that. It's just simple trips, the day trips, the coffee trips to a coffee shop and spending some time together, seeing a sunrise, and just holding hands and walking down the street, stuff like that. The funny things that you see in life, with your partner. It's just those are the things that are going to stick with you, unless you get dementia. So, yeah. So anyway, so yeah, today's the birthday day, and I've got an appointment today. What is my appointment? It's going to be about 10 o'clock, and it's 7:30 right now. So yeah, I'm going to end up taking off, and I'm going to get some breakfast. I'm going to clean up and do all that. I'll piddle around, do some stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to share my thoughts on my birthday and kind of summarize what I've learned over the years and what I would do if I went back to my younger self. And of course, I'd also tell my younger self, invest in Apple, buy Bitcoin when it was, pennies on the dollar, all of the usual stuff, buy lottery tickets, the Back to the Future, bet on, sports games and whatever to get rich. But these things are actually more attainable. So if you're younger than me, hopefully you can take this information. And even if you're my age or older, you can still change what you're doing and take these lessons to help you later in life. And that's why I like listening to advice and things like that, because even though I'm getting older, I can still use some of this stuff, and hopefully I can pass it on to other people as well. Some stuff, it's like, yeah, I wish I learned that early because now it's just a wash, but maybe you can help somebody else with that. I don't know, maybe. We'll see. Okay, so anyway, that's going to be it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, The Buried Life. I would appreciate that. And we'll see you on the next video. All right, peace. Good stuff.